Hi there, and welcome back. You're with your new friend, Alex Palmer, and this is the third video in a series of 4 in which I present Guitar Teacher's Heaven. Today we're going to finish up Section 2, the Picking and Scales section, but I thought I'd mix it up and begin this video by playing a lesson that we addressed yesterday. So let's move on to something new. This is B major 1, 2, 3, 5s. And just a quick note before we get started, a quick reminder. Of course, I'm tuned down half a step because I always am, so if you'd like to play along with this video, please tune your guitar to E flat standard. Okay, B major 1, 2, 3, 5s. So these numbers refer to the intervals that we're playing on each chord. So this is the progression that we're playing, 1, 6, 4, 5. And this is all over Western pop music. I will perform the progression right now. Right, so a major 1 chord, minor 6, major 4, major 5, and back home. So that's our chord progression that we're doing. We're in the key of B. And so essentially what we're doing is applying this sequence to the notes in the scale. So if this is a B major scale, we're playing the first, second, third, fifth note of the scale. And then we're repeating that and repeating it, and we end up on an octave way at the top. So same here, we'll put the same sequence onto the G sharp minor scale. And so what do we get? Well, it looks like that. So I'm going to perform this, and it sounds beautiful. This is such a nice concept that was inspired by the Final Fantasy video games. I love the music in some of those earlier games. I love the composer, and he started most of the games with this very unique sequence of 1, 2, 3, 5. And so any of the Final Fantasy preludes that you listen to should sound sort of like this. Okay, so I came up with this, I was just sort of picking notes out of the scale, and I thought, hey, that sounds like Final Fantasy. So I set it to a progression, and off we go. So the only thing to notice, or to note here, is that I'm sliding up and out of each of these highest notes. I think it sounds really cool to slide up and then slide down. And also, I want to explain a concept here called economy picking. I don't like that word at all. Like, is it a noun? Is it an adjective? You know. So, but this is what they'd call it in the industry, in the biz, I guess. They'd call this economy picking. And if you want to know what that is, basically it means that you're sweeping as often as possible. So here we have to sort of alternate pick between these. But then because there are 3 notes on 3 different strings, we can go down, down, down. And you see that in the picking there. But because these are on the same string, we have to go down, up, down. But then again, we have a nice little run here where we can go down, down, down. So have fun with that. I love this paradigm, this sort of concept of playing 1, 2, 3, 5s. It just sounds very harmonious and beautiful. So have fun with that. Your students will love it too. And it's not that hard to pull off either. Okay, this is a fun little study, the counting study. And I had this random idea where I thought, imagine you played the first note of a scale once, the second note of a scale twice, the third note 3 times, and so on. And so that's not exactly what's going on here. It's sort of reversed. But here we are in the key of B major. And so this is the first note of a B major scale. So I have that we're playing it 8 times. So then when we move to the second note, we'll play it 7 times. And then the third note 6 times, 5 times, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we get this really unique sort of sound. So I'm going to perform this for you, and then I'll say a little more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. Okay, and now I'll perform it in reverse. So. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. Okay, so I'll mention a few things. This is built on a 3-note per string scale pattern, which is something we discussed yesterday. So if you like how this sounds and feels, you can move this into any 3-note per string pattern position, and you could really flesh it out. And why this is so challenging at first, like I'm shooting through this fairly quickly, but it did take a lot of mental horsepower to figure this out. When I had this concept in mind, it took quite a while to actually get it under my hands. And it's hard because I put accents on where you want to really accent the first note of each bar, and that will be challenging because, like here, this is easy because we start with a downstroke, and then in the group of 7 we have to accent with a downstroke. But then we're accenting with an upstroke, and then again with an upstroke. So you need to, this is sort of like the metronomic subdivision that we talked about yesterday as well, where you need to sort of shut your brain off and just sort of do it. Okay, so this is the sort of thing that will only come with practice. And there's not a lot of utility on this guitar lesson here, but it is just sort of a fun little mind game that you can play with yourself and with your students. So I put it in italics because, you know, it's just sort of a funky, groovy thing that you can have some fun with. So let's move on. Okay, this was a big hit online. And I don't know, people seem to have a passion for vulgarity. You look at the title, Get the F's Out. And I wonder, you know, was this shared and liked so many times because people actually played it and they liked how it sounded? Or did they share it because they just liked this vulgarity when I put the title, Get the F's Out, you know? So anyway, I'll explain what's going on here. This is another concept that I had where I don't like the sound of the 4th note of a scale in the melody. So what we're doing here is C major scales, and we're omitting the 4th note, which is an F. So I just thought, you know, this is sort of a funny looking title, like Get the F Out, like Get the F's Out. So what we're doing in each of these positions is playing, they're basically like the 3-note per string pattern positions, except we're omitting the 4th note, basically the pitch F, from every position. So I'm going to run through and play these, and they sound really nice. So check this out. Sorry, a little error there. Down to the G. Play the C major once more. And just for good measure, I'll play again this D position where I fricked up. Okay, so I'm shooting these videos, just as an aside, I'm shooting these all in one sitting, so I can't let an error throw off the entire video, right? Let's just plow on together. So I wasn't sure what to call these because this is still a C major scale, but there's no 4, so it doesn't have any bearing on the name of it. But here, so if we take the F out of basically the D Dorian mode is what this is. If we take the F out, this becomes sort of an ungendered chord. It's not necessarily major or minor because the intervals here are 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and so on. So because the F is the minor third and we're not playing it, we can't really call this a D minor. And same here, I wasn't sure what to call this because if we take this would be a 13 here if we had the F included. So this is like a minor third, But if we're playing the scale, this actually sort of becomes like an augmented second, okay? So in a way, like the third is this fourth, and so I see it as sort of a suspension. But again, here, G major, what this means, with no F, we're taking out the dominant 7, so we lose the tension there. And again, here, this is still, we'd call it an A minor scale, just with no F, because F to this would be a 6, so we don't really have to mention it. And here, I just called this G over B, so this is just a way to call this position, because if this were like B in the bass, then the F is the flat 5. So what we're doing by taking the Fs out of the scale is we take out a lot of the tension. And I never like melodies with the fourth interval in them. I don't mind playing over top of the fourth chord in the bass. It always sounds nice. But I just don't like Fs when we're playing in the key of C. So have some fun with that, and it's just a nice little idea that came to fruition, and people seem to enjoy it. Whether it was because of the nasty title or because it sounds really lovely, I don't know. Okay, this is a nice document, hearing modes, and this is a way to show your students just how these modes sound, sort of how the notes push and pull within each modal position. And so I'm demonstrating this only on the third, fourth, and fifth modes in the key of E. And the reason I did that is because I wanted to keep it to one page. I could have notated this for all 7 modes, but I chose not to, and if you want to figure them out, by all means you should. But here I will perform for you what we see here. So we're going to demonstrate a G-sharp Phrygian mode, so we can start by hitting a G-sharp minor chord, and then I'll play what we have here. Okay, so by doing that, we really get we really get an idea of how this Phrygian mode sounds, okay? And the reason I haven't ever in these lessons put a full rest bar, because it's sort of redundant, but the reason I've done it here is if you are playing along with the guitar profile, this gives you time to set up, because you can't hold a 6-string bar chord and be ready just to jump right in. So if you do want to raise the tempo and try to keep up with this document, that's why I've put these rests in, okay? So now let's look at 4A Lydian. So we can start with this A major 6-string bar chord if we want. Move up to the B Mixolydian. Okay, so this is a 3-note per string scale pattern, and I just really liked how it felt, because it gives you a chance to hear what these modes actually sound like, as opposed to the reference sheet that we looked at yesterday for the 3-note per strings. By including these chords and having some movement within the mode, we just sort of get an idea of what these modes actually sound like. So have some fun with that, and figure out the other modes if you want, but I won't show them to you today. It's up to you. Okay, huge run in C major. This is another 3-note per string pattern, and we're running it in 6s. So check this out. It feels really nice. It's funny, my brain is still in the leave the Fs out mode, because we just played that. So I was hitting the Fs, but I thought, oh, this feels wrong. Okay, now we'll do the ascending. We'll do the same pattern, but we're starting on, this is like in an E Ionian position, and we'll now do it ascending. Excellent. So, of course, you could move this around to other modal positions. This will lend itself to exploration. And yeah, not much else to say about that, except just make sure that you hit the accents at the first group of every 6, because you really want the feeling of 6s to come across. All right, so let's move on. Now, this is just a couple of sequences that I thought felt really nice. I did it earlier this year, and they just felt really good, and this would be great for a beginner or if you wanted to warm up. So here's what we're doing. We're in the key of C, and this is like a C chord position, and this is D minor, E minor, and so on. So we're going to climb the scale, and again, this is the sequence that we're going to apply to every chord. So we're going root, 3, 2, root. Okay, so this would be like root, 3, 2, root. And then we move to the next chord, root, 3, 2, root, root, 3, 2, root. So I'm really big on this sequencing thing, and it's a great way to sort of flesh out ideas and get a lot of mileage in different positions to practice your picking. So let's see how this sounds. Excellent. And here is sequence 2 on this page. It's the same thing, but now we're flipping we're not flipping it, but we're altering the sequence slightly. So we're going root, 2, 3, root. So if we're on the C position, root, 2, 3, root, change chords, root, 2, 3, root, root, 2, 3, root, all the way up. So let's see how this one sounds. And again, I put accents on the first group of every foursome, and that should be obvious why I've done that now, because that's where the pulse is, and so we really want to match up with the metronome or the pulse of the song. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, here come 2 open chord picking practice lessons, and I made these sort of just to explore Guitar Pro's chord generator. And so I don't like their generator because you can't really customize it however you want. For somebody like me who's coming up with strange chords, you can't just plug in whatever you want on the neck and then call it anything you want. Like it will only produce a chord that it knows already, and so that can be very limiting. But here I've used the generator to create a nice little picking practice here. It's a picking study. So what we're doing is going a G major chord. Everyone has seen this. Probably they've come upon it early in their guitar education. And this is a favorite chord as well, a C add 9. So you see in this chord, strings 3, 2, and 1 remain the same here. See, we have open 3, 2, 1. And so all we're doing is removing these 2 notes up from strings 6 and 5 to 5 and 4. So the harmonic motion, by the way, here is just 1 to 4 to 1 to 4. Okay? So let's give this a shot. Okay, so that's the 60s right there, and it's a lot of sort of early in the millennium emo pop songs. Just going from, like, right, that sort of idea. That has early 2000s written all over it. But we're using those two chords to practice our picking here, and this is sort of like sweep picking, except it's so broken up, I guess, that we wouldn't really call it sweep picking. Well, I guess we would, because down, 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 and so we only change the picking direction when we have to. Okay, so this is a nice picking practice exercise, and let's take a look at this next one. So this is a very similar idea, but now we're going from a G chord to a C major 7 chord, because, see, we have this open B here that we're going to see right there. And this is a symbol that we haven't seen today or at all in Guitar Teacher's Heaven. And all this is telling you is to repeat the previous bar verbatim. Okay, so we want to do exactly what we see here and then pretend it's in there. And the reason I did that is, yes, to introduce this symbol, but also because if I were to cut and paste this here, it really took up too much room in this document, and it was really smushed together, and you couldn't make everything out. You couldn't read it very well. And if a student can't read what it actually says, like if everything is like pushed together, then they won't even play it. That's what I find. Only if something looks good will somebody even try it. So let's try this together. This is open chord picking practice from G major to C major 7. Okay, so this is actually fairly challenging to maintain going. This is like an alternate picking idea, so down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, all the way through. So this can be a bit of a challenge to hit the note that you want at that tempo. And also you see this here, let ring throughout. This is just a setting that you can put on Guitar Pro to anytime that you're playing something in clearly an open position, right, where there are a lot of open notes. I think it's nice to set let ring throughout, because it just allows the sound to really overlap. And you can hear when I was playing it, everything. I'm not really cutting any of the notes off, right? I want them all to continue ringing throughout as best as they can. And that will sound really nice on an acoustic or something. And who knows, maybe you could write a song with that. But again, this is the same harmonic motion, by the way, where we're going a 1 chord, just up to a 4 chord, 1 chord, 4 chord, 1, 4. And a lot of songs are written just with that. You'll find a verse section will just be 1, 4, 1, 4, and then the chorus will go usually to the minor area or include different chords harmonically, but a lot of songs you'll find just go from 1 to 4 to 1 to 4 to 1 to 4. And there's nothing wrong with that. I love songs that are 1 to 4, and I can always hear it. Like, say I hear a new song for the first time, I can always say, oh, they're going from 1 to 4 to 1 to 4, right? So anyway, just it's good ear training to know that this is how it sounds to go from a 1 chord up to a 4 chord and back. Okay, so that's something you could mention in your lessons, or maybe you're just hearing that for the first time and you're very excited. Who knows? Okay, so this is a document that I made specifically for Guitar Teacher's Heaven, because I don't teach pentatonic patterns all that often. Well, I do, but I don't have any clear one-page resources. So I decided to draw this up just for this. So this is brand new. Yeah, let's see, 2017. So I made this up basically on the day that I was launching this archive, because I wanted to include something pentatonic related, because you can't really have a crash course, well-rounded guitar course without something that at least mentions the pentatonic scales. So here's what we're going to notice here: 2 note per string. And if you look in each position, there really are 2 notes on each string in this position. Here there's a little bit of a turnaround, but we'll explain that as we get there. But if you look at these, generally they each have 2 notes on every string. Okay, so that's how we're going to organize these pentatonic positions. And before I perform this, I just want to say a few words about what a pentatonic scale actually is. So penta means 5, so it's a 5-note scale. And what we do to achieve these scales is we have our major scale, but we take away the 4th and the 7th note of that scale. So say we're in G major. We're going to take out, so we'll play 1, 2, 3, but then we're not going to play this 4, so we're going to skip that. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and then we're going to skip the 7 and play the 8. So we subtract, basically in this key it would be the C and the F sharp. So this is sort of like the blemish that's hidden within the natural major scale. And so by removing this horrible dissonance, we end up with scales that sound more consonant and have far less tension than would like a full 7-note scale. So I will perform these and then I'll say a few more words. Okay, so when I was choosing how to explain this, some teachers will present pentatonic positions using the caged system, which is something that I don't like at all. I will never endorse the caged system. It's not worth your time. It's not a very good way to organize the fretboard. There are far better ways to organize the fretboard, not the least of which is the 3-note per string patterns that we looked at yesterday. So I will never endorse the caged system. I think it's a waste of time. So I'm not even going to give it the light of day today. I won't even tell you what it is because it's simply not worth your time. But here's what I've chosen to do is to call this an E Aeolian. So this is what the sixth mode in the key of G is. So essentially, this is like an E Aeolian mode, but we've eliminated the 2 and the 6th note. Those are the 2 pitches that we're losing to make this a pentatonic scale, as opposed to like a heptatonic scale with 7 notes. So so this is E Aeolian with no 2 and no flat 6. Okay, and now this is the root note, like this is our G major scale, and this is what I was mentioning before, is we're taking out the 4 note and the 7 note, and that's where all the tension comes in the scale. So let's hear how the G major scale sounds without the 4th and the 7th, or the C and the F sharp. Now we'll move on to the A Dorian position, and here we lose the flat 3 and there's no 6. Now 3 B Phrygian with no flat 2 and no 5. Now 5 mode D Mixolydian without the major 3rd or the flat 7. Finally, we're back up to the same position, but now 12 frets higher, and so this is E Aeolian with no 2 and no flat 6. So as I performed all of those, I'm sure you could hear just how little tension there is in those positions. It always sounds very Asian to me. And pentatonic scales are big pretty much all over the planet. It seems like every culture, Celtic music, American pop music, certainly Asian music, etc. Like all over the world, it seems to be a hit everywhere. So I think what that tells us about people generally is that if they want to appeal to as big an audience as possible, they want to eliminate any tension and have it sounding beautiful all the time. And that's what pentatonic scales do. They eliminate the natural tension within a scale, and they just make it sound more consonant. So I think that's why it's so popular the world over. So how you could practice this would be similar to the 2-note or the 3-note per string scale positions that we looked at yesterday, where we were running sequences on them. So I'm going to use this position and run a couple of sequences on it. So imagine we did three, just like we did yesterday. Imagine I played 3 notes, 1, 2, 3, come back and play 3 notes, 1, 2, 3, come back, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I'll play that all the way up and we'll see how it sounds. And in reverse. Beautiful. And I'll play another sequence that I love doing in this position specifically, where I'm going to do the 15 and then play the 15, then go 12, 12, 15, 14, 12, 12, all the way down and then all the way back up. Listen how cool this sounds. I don't know about you, but that just sounds distinctly Asian to me, and it's just so beautiful. It's just makes me very happy to hear that. So pentatonic scales, I hope that all made sense, and that's what makes up a pentatonic scale, is removing the tension from the scale. Okay? Now let's move on. Okay, this I wrote many years ago. It's a picking challenge in E major. And all we're doing here is playing, and if you look at every other note here, 5, 4, 2, 4, all the way down, this is just an E major scale descending. And then here, if you look at every other note, 2, 4, 1, this is an ascending E major scale. So we're doing that. But while we're doing that, every other note we're going to hit an open E, then an open B, open E, open B, and so on. And then when we ascend, we hit every other note will be open B, open E, B, E, all the way. So I'll perform this, and then, yeah. So what you will hear throughout are these open notes going all the time. So like, and then here you're going to hear, right? So I'll do it again, and you can really hear those open notes. Okay, so have some fun with that. It's just it's challenging, but it's just a little exercise to get your brain and your hands going. Okay, playing quintuplets. We're on to another 3-note per string sequence here, and this is alternate picking a 5s pattern in thirds. So what that means, it's a bit of a mouthful, but we're playing groups of 5, okay, and the scale is climbing in thirds. So if this is the A-Lydian modal position, we're going to play the A-Lydian scale. We'll play the first 5 notes of the scale, okay, and then from here we're going to jump a third and play 5 notes. And then from here we jump a third and play 5 notes, and then again jump a third and play 5 notes, and then we'll play it in reverse. So this again is similar to the metronomic subdivision yesterday, where we want to accent groups of 5s, and this isn't something that you do all the time, but I think it's a very important skill to have, so I included it in this collection. So here we go. Okay. And as always, when it's a 3-note per string pattern, you could move that to any position. Okay, and you should move it to any position just to practice your 5s. You could play it in reverse, and yeah, so that's just a neat little thing, playing quintuplets. And okay, let's move on to part 2 of this. And this is the same thing, except now we're going up all, like basically as high as we can go, and this will sound really nice, but we'll have to slow down here a bit. You see, I put well, in the last one, I gave some help with the fingering, some hints, and here I gave a lot of hints with the fingering because we're going to have to shift a lot up here. So let's play this and see how it sounds. It's a lot to memorize. There are a lot of lessons going on here today. I'm going to play this once more. Okay, so that's something that will certainly get your brain going if you can maintain the alternate picking throughout. And yeah, let's move on. Okay, here we go with another scalar. It's in C major, and it's another scalar triad study. So we haven't played anything quite like this yet. So the sequence here is it's fifth, third root, and we repeat it, and then we move up to another chord, 5-3 root, 5-3 root, fifth, third root, okay, and so we're coming all the way up doing that sequence, and then when we descend, we're going root, third, fifth, okay, all the way down. So I'll play it, and hopefully it makes sense without too much explanation. Okay, and you could repeat that if you want. If you wanted to add the speed trainer, you could increase the points and get it going pretty fast. So keep this as smooth as you can. Try to keep the transition from chord to chord very smooth. Okay, and of course, again, you could move this to other modal positions on the neck and spend a whole day with this. You could spend weeks doing this sort of thing. Okay, let's continue on here. Now, Speed Daddy. This is sort of a two-note study all the way down, a two-string study all the way down. So if you look, we're only ever on these two strings for this entire thing. And this is a 3-note per string shifting sequence, and we're descending it. So if you look, this is a 3-note per string cell, and then there as well. We hit this note, then another 3-note per string. So this is all about shifting. You'll find as you bring your hands from fret 16 all the way down to this 0, there's going to be a lot of shifting going on. So you're traveling the neck horizontally, and let's give it a shot. Okay, and of course you could play this totally in reverse. So this would be like do 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 do, and I'll give that a shot. Okay, so that sort of idea. And I called this Speed Daddy just because I thought it looked funny. But this is something that you could get cooking really fast. And again, you don't have to do just what you see on the page here. You could move this to another part of the neck. So imagine we played the same sort of idea, but on strings 5 and 6. This will have a distinct aeolian feel because, well, you'll see why. So I'll perform the same idea, but starting on fret 16 of string 5. Okay, and the reason it has an A-Lydian, I meant to say it has an A-Lydian feel, and the reason it has a distinct A-Lydian feel is because we're ending on an A, and we're playing the notes in the key of E. And so, yeah, so have some fun and explore that, and put it to different parts of the neck and different scales. Put it in different keys as well. Okay, so let's move on. Speed practice. This is very similar to what we just played. Years ago, when I was sort of wet behind the ears on this whole guitar teaching thing, I made up a word called monostringular patterns. And I've since discarded the use of that word. So mono meaning one, string meaning string, and gular as just sort of a silly suffix. So monostringular, I didn't put that anywhere on here because it's a little too silly. But it's worth mention just to keep it light and fun here. So we're only playing on one string here all the way up, you can see. So this, of course, would be great for a beginner, and this is a nice way actually to introduce the 3-note per string sort of feel with your left hand, how to grab 3 notes in one thing. Even though this is a bunch of notes per string, we're moving up in these little trios of notes. Okay, so this is a great way to sort of visualize the intervals as you come all the way up. And of course, we're going to be shifting a lot. The fingering is all there. So let's give this a shot. In reverse. Okay, so that's the sort of thing that you could really get some speed going, because you have to stay aware because you're shifting horizontally so much. And of course, you don't have to pick this only. You don't have to alternate pick. You could hammer these on. Imagine you picked and hammered on 2 notes. Shift, pick, hammer on, pick, hammer on. So that would sound something like this. Then with pull-offs. Okay, so you could do it with picking or hammer-ons and pull-offs. And this would be very easy to put on different strings. So imagine we remained in the key of E, but we ran this pattern on the A string. So this will sound like A-Lydian, okay? So what you're doing is you're playing an E major scale, but you're starting and ending on an A. So how would this sound if we did it on the B string? So we're going to play an E major scale, but starting on this B. So we're going to call it a B mixolydian. Okay, so that's the sort of thing that you could apply to different strings and try putting different modes on whatever it is. Like you could say, I'm going to do the, I don't know, an E Dorian position, or say I'll do an E Ionian or an E anything. Okay, so try different modes, and there's a lot of mileage that you could get out of this particular lesson. This one feels really good. Keeps your brain active, and there's so much shifting. So this will put you in a good spot. All right, let's move on. String study. This is a neat concept where, well, we're playing all the way up the neck, and here again we're playing all the way up the neck, and what we're doing is playing, okay, so we're in the key of E, and basically what we're doing is playing every other note of the scale. So say this is an E, we're going to skip the second note, play major third, skip the fourth, play the fifth, skip the sixth, play major 7, right? This would be the 9th, this would be the 11th, 13th, and then we're back to the octave, but it comes all the way up. So basically we're playing a third on a third on a third on a third on a third, and I just thought that looked really funny. It looks really cool. So anyway, you don't have to worry too much about it, but I'll perform it, and it's going to sound pretty neat. Oops. Let's do it again. there was some confusion there because I notated this pull off here and I didn't do it the first time. So now let's look at this position, and this one's really cool. I'll do it again. Cool. I'm really proud of this little shift here because this is our root note. It's an F sharp. And by hitting this minor third, the A, as an open string, it allows us, see this is finger 1, it allows us to move our finger all the way up to this position. So by hitting this open, it affords us the time to shift right up the neck. Okay, so it's going to be hard on your brain at first, but it feels really nice. So this is a third on 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 a third. And yeah, just a neat little exercise that will get your brain going and certainly your hands going too. All right, let's continue on. Oh my goodness, we're at the final 2 lessons, and these are related because they're the same thing. First, we're going to do it ascending, and then we'll do it descending. So, something we haven't talked about at all is a technique called tapping. And this is one of the things, when I was learning guitar in high school, I was so attracted to the really flashy moves on the guitar, like sweep picking, as we've already discussed, and tapping. And tapping is basically an effect where you put your picking hand on the neck and you sort of play it like a piano. So you're putting your hand right on the neck, and it's pretty cool. So what we're doing here is this is like a sweeping exercise, but we also have this huge hammer on and pull off portion of each of these bars here, of these chords. And so what happens when you see this T is we're actually so we've picked all of this with sweep picking, and then here we're hammering on this note with our pinky, and then here we're hammering on, but we're using our right hand to actually press. So I still have my pick in my hand, but I'm pressing down with my middle finger on my right hand to sound that note up there. Okay, so it'll sound like, so this little portion here, I'll just play, it sounds something like this. Okay, so before we get there, we have to do a bunch of picking to get all the way up there. So I'll play this fairly slow, and let's see how it sounds. So it's a little hard to hear because just how I have my guitar settings right now, but I don't want to change them. But I'm going to play this entire thing, and so these are built on 6-string bar chord shapes. So if you forgot about this note for a sec, 12, 14, 14, 13, 12, 12, that's our 6-string major bar chord shape. And this one's a little strange. You can't really play this as a bar chord, but here, if you forgot about this 12, I'll just sort of cover it with the mouse. You see 9, 11, 11, 9, 9, 9. That's like our minor bar chord, right? And here again, if you forgot about this 11, you see 7, 9, 9, 8, 7, 7. That's just again our major bar chord shape. So I'm going to perform this whole piece of music here, repeating each bar. Let's give it a shot. And then we'd go back and repeat it. Okay? So I'm going fairly slow, and it's the sort of thing that you'd want to do a little faster. It's sort of, when you focus too much on it, sometimes it becomes difficult, but you'll want to start slow just to get a feel for it. and then you can gradually add some speed. So let's take a look at what is the final lesson today. And this is the same thing. If you look at the motion here, so this time it's descending. So I should mention actually before we move on, the chord progression is descending. So 1, 7, 6, 5, right? Like so melodically and harmonically this is descending. But because the actual sequence is ascending, I've decided to differentiate these by calling this ascending. So it's starting by ascending. And then here I called it descending because we're start by descending. And yes, the chords are descending too, but that's not really what this is referring to. The descending, quote unquote, is referring to the sequence and not the progression. Okay? So you wouldn't think that this one would be different or harder or whatever, but it is slightly harder because, see, we have to start from nowhere. Like we start with tapping a note. So we have to hit this really hard with our middle finger and pull off and come all the way down. And it's hard to really explain to someone who doesn't play guitar why playing something exactly in reverse would be any harder than playing it the other way. And you'll only really know if you try and if you're a guitar player. So it's really good for your brain to just do things totally in reverse, and this gave me a chance to notate it. And if you look at this, the motion here, it's cool how the last one is, they're sort of like, they're sort of inverted on each other. They look really cool in tandem, I think. So here I'm going to perform this, and this is the last lesson in the picking and scales section. So let's see how it goes. So a couple errors there, but that's okay. I feel the pressure mounting because since I am recording these videos in one go, I find that, you know, as you get along and you're doing fine, the pressure builds and builds because you don't want to blow the entire video that you just shot. So anyway, I think that went just fine, and you'll hear it clearer on the Guitar Pro file, and this is the sort of thing that would sound killer with distortion. So give it an honest go, and you'll get there eventually. And the only thing that I want to mention too is that this will be harder to sweep pick accurately because since your hand literally has to, you can't palm mute. So since it literally has to press on the fretboard, it means that you can't just rest your palm on the neck or on the bridge the whole time, right? So it's a little harder to make this sound clean going extremely fast, and that's why I haven't gone too fast for the demonstration today, because you can't really palm mute as much as you would like to. Okay, so that's everything for today. I hope you enjoyed this, and tomorrow we have one last video, and we're going to do a lot more tapping tomorrow, because tomorrow we're looking at the party tricks section. It's section 3. I've sort of put them in a logical order, where section 1 was songs and jingles, and that's sort of how people start learning guitar, learning other people's songs. And then we did picking and scales, and that's where you really focus on this sort of stuff and learn and study the neck and the fretboard. And then section 3 is party tricks, where you go out and you just say, like, check this out, like, you know, look what I can do, sort of thing. So tomorrow we'll be looking at the party trick section. It will be a short, fun video. And look, thank you so much for listening to me once more. I had another great day with you, and I will talk to you tomorrow.